Got 10 minutes.
You know,
got
I'm a
10
lawyer
minutes.
and a preacher, right? No, I will. I'll be as brief as I can. Welcome to the Resistance. So, in order to say what I think is important to take away about music in this moment, I have a story. Last summer, my father and I took a road trip down to Georgia. It was a trip that he was supposed to take with his college roommate to go and visit old teammates. Unfortunately, his roommate passed away, and my father initially said he didn't want to take the trip anymore, but then said if I was going to take the trip anywhere, I'd want to take it with my son. And on our way down there to visit some of his friends and also stop in Savannah, Georgia, which is where he's from, the song kept playing in my mind. He's a battle axe in the time of battle, a battle axe in the time of battle. He's a battle axe in the time of battle, a shelter in the time of storm. That was a song my grandfather, Deacon Levi Hall, used to sing at First Mount Sinai Baptist Church, where he would lead the congregation in congregational hymns and singing. And it was on that trip that we went to go visit family and see people from my father's past that we went to the grave site where my grandfather was buried that I had never been to. Guyton, Georgia, a little small town outside of any major city. And when we went, we had to find family who still lived in Guyton to point us to the location where my grandfather was buried, because he was buried in the colored cemetery. Not by law, because he'd passed in the late 80s, and so segregation had been outlawed, but he was still wanting to be buried with his family, who, when they were deceased and buried, they were buried in the colored cemetery. And when we went out and finally found it, I looked up and there was this raggedy ass chain link fence separating where the bramble bush and weeds were, where my people were buried, where these beautiful headstones were, where the white cemetery was in Guyton, Georgia. I guess spirits can't pass through fences. And so we left that location in Guyton and traveled north to find my father's friends. And as we were going, this other song kept playing in my head. Home, sweet home, home, sweet home. And that was a song that my grandmother used to sing, who was a domestic back in Savannah, Georgia, when she was raising my father and suffered from any number of illnesses and ailments that took her life early when my father was only 18. And so I had never met her. And yet again, we went to this dusty location in Willowboro, South Carolina, to a colored cemetery where my grandmother was buried. And all along this journey, those songs keep resonating in my head, and I am reminded of the resistance of my people and my ancestors who came up through slavery, pushing against everything that this nation said they weren't, but also everything that they said they were. It was those songs, it was that inspiration that allowed them to resist. It was that what allowed them to believe in themselves and to have courage and to have faith. There was a song in their hearts. And all along the journey, my father and I listened to this playlist that he had created of all his favorite jazz artists that he was listening to back in Manhattan, Kansas, when he was one of the only few black students there, because he had been recruited to K-State on a basketball scholarship. And him and his roommate, Jack Thomas, who has been deceased, pulled together these musical artists that encouraged them and inspired them and affirmed them in their blackness in that moment. Jazz artists like John Coltrane, Yusef Lateef, Pharoah Sanders, Aretha Franklin, Rahsaan, Roland Kirk. That was the soundtrack of his life. That was the soundtrack of that moment. That was the soundtrack of that black boy at that white college who went out onto the homecoming field to hold a protest about the treatment of black students on that campus, who later went on to become the dean of Northeastern Law School and then the president of the University of the Virgin Islands, who had a son who would go on to be a civil rights attorney and work as the racial justice director at the ACLU of Massachusetts, and be the president and CEO of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts. Music is so important. Whether it's the music of old Negro spirituals or the songs that were sung during the Troubles or any song that is played at any powwow or any song that comes out of the hip-hop generation, music is what inspires us, it drives us, it affirms us, it carries us. This is what we need right now. Music is what we need right now. I know there's a song in your heart, a song that you carry, a love song, a lullaby, a song of resistance, a song of protest. Sing that song. Sing it loud. Keep singing.
Beautiful, beautiful.